Welcome back to 60 Plus Uncensored. I'm your host, Seb Fry, and my guest today is Cheryl Ilov, who says that everything you think you know about aging is probably wrong. Cheryl is a physical therapist, Pilates instructor, Feldenkrais practitioner, and a genuine certified ninja. Yes, you heard that right. She started martial arts training in her 40s and never looked back. She's the author of 2 books, including award-winning Forever Fit and Flexible, Feeling Fabulous at 50 and Beyond, which is now available as an audiobook she narrated herself. So without further ado, let's get into it. Hey Cheryl, thanks so much for joining me on 60 Plus Uncensored. Now, for those of the audience who are not familiar with who is Cheryl Ilov, would you take a minute and introduce yourself to our audience?
Oh boy. Okay, who is Cheryl Ilov? Man, that's a question. I'm just an ordinary person. I'm definitely over 60. The big 7-0 is right around the corner, so I'm actually really excited about that. I've had a very interesting life so far, and I expect it to get even more interesting over the next few years. I was born and raised in a small steel town in western Pennsylvania. I have 4 sisters. There's 5 of us. And actually, when I was 21, I ran away from home. At least that's the way my mother put it, because I desperately wanted to get out of that area and I wanted to move to Colorado. So just a few days after graduating college, a roommate of mine and I got into my little 1974 Ford Maverick and drove across the country to Denver, Colorado, and I lived there for 47 years. Loved it.
And do you not live there anymore?
I do not live there anymore, no. After 47 years, I met my husband just 2 years after I moved out there. He moved to Denver with his fiance. Apparently it didn't work out. He lived there for 45 years. I lived there for 47 years. We loved Colorado. We loved Denver. We thought we would never leave. And then all of a sudden things just weren't going really well in the state and in the city. So we moved to a small, charming, quirky, but vibrant little town in Missouri, of all places. So that's where I am now.
Really? That's interesting. Yeah, I know a real estate agent, and she moved from Denver to a small town in Missouri as well. So
really?
You're not the only one who's moved from Denver to a small town in Missouri. So I like Denver. I'm going to go there in August, I guess, for a few days for the Certified Senior Advisor Conference, which is going on right there. So I am a Certified Senior Advisor, so it's the big hullabaloo in our community. So I'm looking forward to that. So you ran away, so quote unquote, at 21 years old from a steel town. Is that like Pittsburgh or someplace near there, or?
Yep, it's outside of Pittsburgh. It's about 30 miles, I think, northeast of Pittsburgh. And it's a little town called Aliquippa. Again, small steel town. My dad was actually an immigrant from Eastern Europe, which is why I have the strange last name. I kept my maiden name when I got married. And I never thought in a million years that I would end up in another small town, almost 50 years later. But it's really interesting that the area that we moved to is very similar in some ways to the town that I'm from. I mean, it has some rolling hills, a lot of open spaces. The weather's horrible like it was in western Pennsylvania, so I'm pretty used to that. But the people are really nice. I mean, I'm shocked how nice everybody is. So shocked that the first couple of months that we lived here, I was always looking over my shoulder. It's like, why are you being so nice to me? Where's my wallet? What do you want? It's been really one heck of an adjustment and a big life change. But it's been good so far. We've been here 6 months.
You're brand new to town. How did you pick that little town?
Good question. My husband, his family, his mom and dad and his youngest brother actually lived in this little town in the 1960s. Maybe it was, late 1960s, maybe early 70s. So Mike was still in college at the time, so he helped his parents move out here to this little town. It's called Excelsior Springs. And, his dad was transferred there, and they said, you can live anywhere in the Kansas City area, just pick a place that's not too far away. So they discovered this little town, and it was like, okay, yeah, this is where we're going to be. So my husband would come and spend summers out here with them and met a lot of people. He has 2 or 3 really close friends who are still here. So when we were looking to leave Colorado, it was like, let's find some place where we already know some people, because you don't want to go someplace where you don't know anybody. And then what if something happens to one of you, the other one is stuck there with no support system. So, a year and a half ago, he took me to, he brought me here to show me the town, and here we are.
Right on. Yeah. So is it called Missouri or Missouri? What do they say there?
Everybody's saying Missouri, so I'm just going with the flow. I haven't heard one person yet say Missouri.
Okay, all right. That's just urban myth then, I guess. All right. So I noticed that behind you on your wall, you have a bunch of katanas. So tell me about the katanas and about your history with them.
Oh boy. So when I was 44, I was looking for a new acupuncturist because mine had gone away if I'm retired. And I was working, I had my own alternative physical therapy practice at the time, and one of my clients said, hey, you need to try this guy. He's really good. His name is Mark, and this is where he's located. And I went, okay. So if she thinks he's okay, he must be, because, she's a really picky person. So I called the guy, made an appointment. I went for my first appointment, and, he seemed pretty nice, but when he started putting needles in my legs, he got a really faraway look on his face. And he said, with your legs and my coaching, I could teach you how to kill with these things. And I'm thinking, crazy person, who in their right mind thinks like that, let alone says it out loud to a perfect stranger? Where's my purse? But of course, I couldn't grab my bag and run because he literally had me pinned to the table. So I had needles sticking out all over. And I just said, well, thank you, for the offer, but no, I'll just save my legs for ballet class. Martial arts is not on my radar. Very long backstory. It took him 3 years because he had a little dojo right next to his clinic. It took him 3 years to try and get me to train with him for 3 long years. And I kept saying, no, it's not going to happen. It's never going to happen. I am not going to do martial arts. He finally broke me. Took him 3 years. They called me stubborn, but it took him 3 years. And finally I said, okay, Mark, I will take a few classes just to prove to you how much I'm going to hate it, and then I'll quit. 10 years later, I became his first female black belt. In 20 years, I know, in 20 years of teaching, he never had a woman achieve that high of a rank. I was 57 when I got my black belt. When I started training, obviously, I was never looking to become a black belt. I didn't even want the yellow belt. I didn't want the white belt, but it came with the uniform. So apparently I didn't hate the art. I didn't hate the training. I fell in love with it fairly quickly. It took a little while because, a lot of times I was the only woman in class. And that was pretty uncomfortable to be in a room with, all of these men who the goal is to try and beat me up or try and attack me. There was definitely a learning curve there, and it took me a while before I got comfortable. But once I did, it was like, man, this stuff is really fun. And then I just kept on with it and just kept going to class and ended up becoming one of his top students.
So which martial art do ninjas use? Is it jujitsu or karate, or what is it?
It's called Ninpo Taijutsu, sometimes called Ninjutsu. So it's an ancient Japanese martial art that's very traditional and kind of formal in a lot of ways, although the spirit of the ninja is very playful. And so while we're learning, we're definitely kind of playing mind games with each other and a lot of other sneaky little ninja tricks that we like to play.
Well, ninjas are supposed to be sneaky, right? I mean, like they come in the night, they're dressed in black, they murder people, and they leave, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that pretty much sums it up.
So, karate, I guess, doesn't really use like katanas and stuff like that, right? I mean, so when you're training to be a ninja, are you actually like doing sword fighting and have nunchucks and all that, or what's it really like?
Yes. Yeah, we do. So with karate is and like taekwondo, they're considered some of the hard arts, because you're a lot of punching, a lot of kicking, and it's a lot of brute strength. And if you look at me, I'm 5'7", I'm like 125 pounds. I don't have a whole lot of muscle, and brute strength isn't going to work if somebody tries to attack me. So we learn how to use our body in a very efficient way of getting under our opponent's center of gravity and using ours to be able to take them down. We do use weapons. We do train a lot in what I can't. It's not. Is it nunchucks? The throwing stars.
On a chain, the sticks on a chain.
Oh yeah, no, I never did those. I never did those.
I think that's a nunchuck.
Yeah, and I think you're right. And what Sensei would do is we would have weapons trainings, was typically on Saturdays, and he would do a certain weapon for like maybe 6 months, then go to a different weapon. So we'd have 6 months of the katana training, then we'd have 6 months of the 6-foot-long bow staff, which is over in there in the corner, you can't see it. Then we'd go 6 months to something else. When it came to the nunchucks, nobody would show up because it was way too painful. So
I like those throwing stars. Is that a thing or?
Oh yes, we had a throwing wall. And I say had because of course I'm not there any longer since I moved here. But yeah, we had a wall and we had the throwing stars, and we would practice throwing and just making the targets. Hit here, and to try and get our accuracy.
Right. So when you're practicing, though, you're not actually using like steel blades, are you? Right? I mean, you're using like wood or something like that, right? You're not really actually like sparring with steel, are you?
Well, you can see that one wooden sword. So we start with the wooden sword. Actually, with the kids especially, they start kind of with little foam padded fake swords. And as adults, of course, we start with the wooden swords. And once we have some level of understanding of how to use it, then we go to the real blades. However, if you unsheathed any of my swords, they're not that sharp. So,
right. But it's got to hurt to get hit by one.
Yeah. And you can't see it, but I have a tiny little white scar on my wrist from a bad day when all of the guys were trying to help me, and they were yelling instructions because we were like unsheathing and doing certain moves with the sword, and then we would resheath it, and the guys were yelling instructions, and I'm like, I gotta hear Sensei. He's the one I need to listen to, not you, morons. And as I was watching and I was trying to look what Sensei was doing, and I had to turn my head to see him, and I felt this very sharp, stinging pain in my wrist. And it was like, oh, that can't be good. So I looked at it, and you know how when you cut yourself, it's like a little white streak, and then the blood starts? Yeah, well, that's kind of what happened. So I had to excuse myself, and I said, sumimasen, Sensei, I need to step off the mat. So I seem to have cut myself. And the guys just went crazy. It's like, oh, my God, you need to go to the hospital. Oh, my gosh, you need to have you had a tetanus shot recently? And they're going on and on. And I'm looking at them going, guys, I've seen more blood in a point shoe. I think I'll be fine. But, yeah, so you can cut yourself.
Right. Okay. So that sounds scary. But, so you said 5'7", and you're sparring with these people who are maybe 6'3", I don't know, and maybe they have 100 pounds on you. I mean, is it really credible that somebody with that differential is really going to be able to, fend off somebody who is, has that much of an advantage in height and weight?
Yes, because their advantage is actually their disadvantage, if that makes sense. Because my size, and I did work out with a lot of guys who are about 6'2" to 6'4", and pretty muscular and sturdy. One of them, my goodness, he was as solid as a rock. But if I could get under them, then it's easy for me to take their weight. If I try and resist, game over. They're going to take me down in a heartbeat. But if I use let's just call them my feminine wiles, and my sneakiness that I already kind of was born with even before I began training, I could take somebody down fairly easily. I have
Right.
that kind of, I really think it can be done. And they're not letting me do it. I mean, when you're a new student, sure, they're moving very slowly and very gently so you can get the feel of where your body is supposed to be in conjunction with theirs, and how to move somebody who is big, and how to move, if you've ever done a keto, they kind of go with somebody else's energy, the partner's energy, and they use that energy against them, and that's pretty much how we work it. I mean, it's not like taekwondo, which is, the powerful kick, 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 or the punches with karate. We do learn how to kick and punch, but it's not our favorite move. It's not our weapon of choice.
All right. What is your weapon of choice as a ninja then?
It's what's going on up in here between these 2 points. It's all in
Really?
the head. It's the mindset. Yeah.
Mindset. So when you're walking down a dark alley at night, no worries for you. Huh? Are you pretty comfortable in just about any environment these days, or?
Well, yeah, as far as the walking down a dark alley at night, because I would never do that. Why would I do that? I mean, duh. That again is your ninja mindset. It's like, don't go there.
Right, right. Don't put yourself into a bad situation is probably the best way to stay out of one, I guess, right? So
Yeah.
now I understand you're also an author, as well as being an actual ninja, right? You've written a few books. Tell me about the books you've written.
My first book is actually a book about fitness over 50. And that's based on my own experience of, as I was getting closer to the big 50, some of the stupid things that, people would say, that you can't do this anymore, blah, 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 and, it's the end of the world. And it's not. And having vitality, energy, fully functioning, joints and muscles at 50, 60, 70 and beyond is not that hard. It's not that complicated. So that is what possessed me to write my first book. And, it's not about doing exercises. It's about doing movement, and it's about learning how to use your body in a way to keep yourself moving, healthy, flexible, fit for your entire lifetime. And yeah, it is possible. So if somebody says getting old, your joints are going to ache, you're going to get tight, you're going to get stiff, your spine is going to shrink, you're going to have to get knee surgery, and tell them to be quiet and go away. You don't need to hear that kind of stuff.
Right. Well, so like Mick Jagger, he's like 83 or something like that, right? And my understanding is he works out like 4 hours a day, including ballet. He does like ballet for like an hour or two a day to keep him on his toes. So, but you just said exercise is not required in order to stay fit and limber. So, like, what, Tai Chi, is that what you recommend? Or like, how do people who are like over 60 stay fit and limber without really, I mean, you said movement, but like, is it Tai Chi? Like, what kind of movement? Yoga? What kind of stuff are we talking here?
That is a great question. I love that question because, okay, so I am a recovering physical therapist who hates exercise and thinks that chocolate is food, because it is. So it's not about exercise and just doing something that you think you have to do. If Mick Jagger is taking ballet, I'm kind of thinking he doesn't hate it. He probably enjoys it, as well as it's keeping him strong. It's good for his bones, his joints, his spine, his muscles, his mindset. You got to really be thinking as you're going through all of those combinations. Find something that you love. I think Tai Chi is actually the bomb for healthy aging. It's wonderful. Have I done it once or twice? I didn't really like it because there was no music. I like ballet, and I've been doing that for almost 50 years now. But the key is to find something that you really love to do. It's not about, okay, I have to go to the gym 3 times a week because that's what the experts tell me. I have to do this. No, do something that really makes your heart and your soul sing when you're doing it. I prefer doing, classes, if I'm going to take a class, in groups of people. I'm a very social person. I loved, I still take ballet, drive down to Kansas City to do it from this small town. And I love the camaraderie, to be able to do and to enjoy an activity with a room full of people who feel the same passion that you do about what it is that you're doing. So I got that with ballet. You get that in martial arts as long as you're in the right dojo. That to me is the ultimate. Some people are loners. They prefer doing things on their own. Whatever floats your boat. Is it a walk? Is it a hike? Is it a jog? Just find something that you love and that you're passionate about, because then it's not exercise, it's just fun.
Right. So, but ballet sounds like exercise, right? I mean, you must break a sweat if you're ballet dancing, right?
Oh yeah, break a sweat a lot. Yeah, but I mean it's different. There's beautiful music. There's the choreography. There's a room full of people who, for the most part, really like each other for the most part, and all following a passion that, keeps us healthy and useful. And in ballet class, you've got people. We have some teenagers, some older teenagers in the adult class, all the way up to there are women in their 70s. One looks like I think she's 80 and still taking ballet because she can.
And this is in your new small town in Missouri. They have these ballet classes for all ages.
No, that's not in the small town. It's in Kansas City. So it's a 47-minute drive. But,
47-minute drive. Okay. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, that's not too bad. So, I think a lot of people, though, would not want to do ballet because they have no experience in it and whatever else. So what other kinds of, and also like Tai Chi or yoga, right? I mean, that might be kind of far out of the box, I think, for a lot of people. Mm-hmm. What kinds of things could older adults look to that might provide that same kind of benefit, though, without being so niche, I guess you might say?
I would say to just keep exploring and keep looking about what is being offered in the area, in your area. Be very selective. Don't just walk into a class cold. I would actually go to, if it's a studio, an exercise class, I would go ahead of time and watch and see what the class is like before just walking in there cold, because you never know. Maybe the vibe isn't quite right. Maybe the instructor isn't very clear, or the group isn't very supportive. So that's really important. You have to feel comfortable in the group that you're with. So definitely go and watch a class first. Talk to the other students after the class. That's a really great way of doing it. And you know in your heart what you really enjoy. So, I would never go and do like a weight training, because I wouldn't be able to stand it. And we have, there's a community center really close to me. It's 2 minutes from our house. And I went and I took like 2 or 3 classes, and it was like, it's a 2-minute drive. I don't have to pay for classes, but I don't go because it just doesn't make my heart and my soul sing. It's like, as one of my ballet teachers would say, it's like digging ditches.
Right. Well, now you mentioned classes, right? And I believe, do I have this right, that you're a Pilates instructor, or you were a Pilates instructor?
Yes, I am. I actually had my own alternative physical therapy clinic for a while. Well, not really a clinic, it was more of an office where I worked with people one-on-one, specializing in Pilates-based rehab and conditioning. So I did that for 17 years before I closed my office. And even as a matter of fact, this morning I was in the other part, I call this my girl cave. I was in the other end of the girl cave doing, reviewing some of my Pilates notes and going over it. And I have a reformer here beside me that I'm going to be upgrading. So I still do it. I still work with people if they want me to. I'm really passionate about helping people, especially if they're in a stuck position, to try and get moving through it, to find something that they really enjoy doing, that feels good to them, that their body really enjoys, is good for your cognition, your balance, your bones, your joints, the whole thing.
Right. So I don't actually know anything about Pilates at all. So I think that probably a lot of people also don't know anything about Pilates. But yet I think it's like I understand it's like it's really good for your core. I don't know. Could you elaborate? Because I think a Pilates is probably something that is probably pretty common, right? Like I think that Tai Chi, not so common in many parts of the country, right? But Pilates, I think, probably is pretty widespread, and it's low impact, right? And doesn't involve a lot of cardio, I don't think, but yet has a lot of benefits. So tell me more about Pilates, and what's that like? What is it exercise? How long does it take to do? Is it very expensive? Could you shed some more light on what the Pilates is all about?
Sure, I would love to. I first discovered Pilates, I think it was back in 1983, where there was only one person in the whole Denver area doing Pilates. Because it was just not a household word. Nobody
Right.
even knew what the heck it was.
Right.
My ballet teacher at the time had one of our students. He says, you need to open a Pilates studio, and Mike's like, I don't even know what you're talking about. So he did some research, and he started just like one little reformer where he would work with people, the dancers, one-on-one. So I took some classes from him, and I enjoyed it, but then I really started to feel the difference in my body. And there's several different ways, many different ways of doing Pilates. What I highly recommend, of course, if you're going to take a Pilates class, start with a private lesson, and I would also recommend starting with the reformer, which is a piece of equipment that Joseph Pilates created, where you actually lie down and you can be pushing against very light resistance. It doesn't have to be hard, light resistance, and you're working and you're finding the minor muscles of your body, like the ones around your spine. You're strengthening those in a way that's very supportive and very gentle, but very powerful. So you're really reorganizing your nervous system as well as your skeletal structure and your muscles to give you that strong core, long, strong legs, upper body strength. It's very gentle, but it's very powerful. And it's really, really powerful for rehabbing injuries. What has happened, though, over the years, because even when I was in physical therapy school, I would sing the praises of Pilates to all of my instructors, my classmates and everybody else. It's just so wonderful and it's just so effective. And everybody would look at me and say, yeah, but it's just for dancers. It's not good for anything else. And I'm like, what? And then a few years later, the rehab community kind of got a hold of Pilates and said, hey, this stuff is pretty good. So they started doing it. But they were doing it in a less of an artistic way of doing it, more of a, hardcore style. And then kind of, things got to the power Pilates. Now you have everybody doing a big group class with 20 reformers, and you hear the reformers banging around, and it's like, oh, no, it's not exactly what Joseph Pilates meant for it to be.
Now, you said the reformer, and the only thing I think about Pilates is this thing, like a kind of a moving board on the ground with some cables attached to it.
Yep.
Is that what a reformer is?
Yep. The universal reformer is what it's called. And that was actually the first piece of equipment that Joseph Pilates designed. But since, after he did that, there were several different pieces of equipment and apparatus that you can buy online if you want to. But I say get some training first before you do that. But there's the reformer, which is on the ground, like you just described. There's something, some people call it the Cadillac. I call it the universal reformer. And that is more of not the universal reformer, sorry. I call it the trap table. It's higher off the ground than the reformer. And the bed doesn't slide, it doesn't move. And there are all kind of like resistance and springs and different movements that you can do on the trap table, which is really a lot of fun and really challenging, but not impossible to do. And it feels good when you're doing it.
So how much do these reformers cost? Are they expensive, or are they pretty cheap?
Yeah.
Or they're expensive?
Well, yeah, it depends on what kind you get. I bought a home unit when they just started making them, and this was back in 1996 I bought this one. And, it's a home unit, and it has done its job. It's really great, and I spent $1,200 for that.
Oh, wow.
So that's actually pretty good. So then when I went on and opened my own practice, I bought a universal reformer, which was really beautiful, and I don't remember how much I paid for that. You'd have to go online and look. You can get them now online for as low as $900, but you're not going to get a real high quality piece of equipment, but it could be functional. And a trap table, I would not recommend that unless you were a professional or in a professional setting.
Right. Okay. So let's just say that I want to get into Pilates, but I don't like to go to like a class because that's not my jam. So could you get a reformer and like watch YouTube videos, or get like Apple Fitness, or like are there sort of like ways you can effectively do Pilates at home without needing to go to a class? Because a lot of people also live out in the country. You know, they live far away. Maybe they don't like to drive. Right? Is this something that you can do just sort of on your own, or do you really need to go to a class setting to take advantage of it?
You absolutely can do it on your own. However, I would caution the listeners to take some professional training first from a professional. So don't just say, okay, I'm going to do Pilates, I'm going to watch this video. You really need some instruction. You want to make sure that you're not going to hurt yourself, because it is easy to hurt yourself. To pull something if you're not really connecting with that mind-body connection. So just going through and schlepping through the movements or the exercises can get you into trouble. So I really recommend finding somebody in your area, even if you are in the country, you don't have somebody really close by. Maybe do a Zoom call. You can do things online. That's one of the few things, benefits that we got from COVID. We learned we could do stuff online and learn that way. So I would do that, so you have a professional looking at you and watching you and giving you corrections so you don't hurt yourself.
Okay. Does Pilates workout, does it take is it an hour long? Is it a half hour? How long does it take to get a good Pilates workout? And do you need to do it like every day, or is like twice a week enough, or what does that look like in practice?
Ooh, I love that question too. It's whatever you want it to be. And whatever, you think you need. If you feel like, I want to get on the reformer today, or I want to get down on the floor and just do the mat work, you do maybe 15 minutes. It's like, oh, I'm done. I don't think I want to do anymore. Then don't. You're in control of your own self and your own body. So, you can get really good results in a surprisingly short amount of time.
Huh. Interesting.
But you have to do it correctly. Oh, yeah?
Yeah, do it correctly. Yeah, well, not all the time, but she has a gym and they have classes, right? So she goes to that sometimes, and she suggested maybe I should go to Pilates too, and I'm open to it, maybe I should, but there's only so much time in the day,
right.
And I do a lot more cardio and weight. I mean, I've never done Pilates, so I do only cardio and like some resistance training, I guess you would say. But Pilates is kind of resistance training, isn't it, to some degree?
Oh, yeah, it is. And, you can change the weight. I keep looking over here because that's where my equipment is. You change the resistance, the amount of resistance with the springs. So you can have lighter springs, heavier springs. The beautiful thing about Pilates that I just fell in love with is you can get a lot more conditioning from less resistance than more. Huh. Because if you have less resistance on that reformer, and you're doing your, gentle, your leg extensions, your core is really having to kick in and support you, because there is so much light resistance that those smaller muscles, like around your spine, the multifidi, that we call like the helper muscles, they're the ones that are really having to kick in and do their fair share of the work. If you put a lot of resistance, then those big muscles that are used to doing, all the hard work, they take over, and the little guys go, you do all the work, I'm not going to do anything. But it's those small muscles we really want to strengthen, as well as the smaller abdominal muscles that keep our spine strong, prevent us from having injuries, give us that nice flat stomach and small waistline. Those are the ones you really want to target.
Right. Well, that's what I want. I want a flat stomach and a small waistline. I'm all about that. So tell me about this Feldenkrais. Feldenkrais? Am I pronouncing that correctly?
I'm very impressed. You certainly did, yes.
Then that's a brand new word to me. 45 minutes ago, I had never heard of it before. What is it?
Okay. Feldenkrais is, I'll give you the spiel. It is a highly sophisticated form of neuromuscular re-education based on neuroplasticity, which is just a fancy way of saying that our mind, our brain, our body, and all of our senses are incredibly malleable and able to change and learn new patterns. For example, say if I start getting shoulder pain because I'm always doing something crazy with my shoulder. And so that pattern is ingrained in my brain, in my nervous system, and I'm having pain. I can't get out of it, and it's like, okay, I'll go to the doctor, see what they do, get some PT. It's not going away. If Feldenkrais takes you through movements, gentle movement patterns that are so gentle, they're slow, and they really activate that mind-body connection again and give you the opportunity to explore movement. Typically you're lying down, you can do it in any position, to get you so you have the support of the floor, to find different ways of moving in a way that, wow, if I move this way instead of that way, now all of a sudden my shoulder's not hurting anymore. All of a sudden I have more mobility, more range of motion, and I can do the things I want to do without injuring myself. It's a powerful, powerful modality. When I first took my first class, it was actually a 3-day workshop in Feldenkrais, and I wasn't even sure why I was there. I didn't know what it was. I heard about it, and I knew a lot of people did it. After that 3rd day, I knew I had to become a practitioner because it was that powerful. And it's a 4-year training program to become a Feldenkrais practitioner. But let me tell you, it was well worth every bit of it. And I do that here in the Girl Cave myself. I'll just get down on the floor on a blanket, and sometimes one of the dogs will come and, do some Feldenkrais with me. We'll roll around on the floor. And it's just amazing how even 15, maybe 20 minutes of just that gentle exploration, you feel like you've either had a very long nap or a massage or just got out of a hot tub. It's almost like, woo, because you're really working your brain and your body at the same time.
So you studied it for 4 years to become a practitioner?
Yep, certainly did.
Wow, that's a lot of work. So do you practice Feldenkrais for professionally? Do you give, what are they, classes? What are they?
Well, classes and working with individuals. So, the classes, it's a group class where the practitioner verbally guides the class, through the movement patterns. The private lessons are ones where you have hands-on with the practitioner gently guiding you through certain movement patterns. It's just such an amazing body of work. And I can't remember the second part of the question.
4 hours, and then it's something you actually practice yourself. And so you do, but do you practice in your small town in Missouri, or do you go to Kansas City to do that?
Okay, so no, I do my own practice here at home for myself. And just as I said, I was doing some more, work on the Pilates and going through my notes and stuff. I'm doing the same thing with my Feldenkrais work. I have volumes and piles of CDs. Thank God I've got a CD player that we have recorded my entire 4 years of training. So I would pay for the notes and pay for the recordings and stuff. So I have a whole library of that, and I've been going through that since I've moved here. One reason was just not only to refresh what I had learned, but also to try and calm my nervous system down from this huge move going from 47 years living in Denver to this small town in Missouri. I was pretty much all over the place. I had to be able to calm my nervous system down because it was a lot of stress and a lot of anxiety. And it just was just amazing. I was so grateful that I had that. So I did, what I had to do is I had an LLC in Colorado. So I had to, I figured I'd move here to Missouri, keep the LLC, just transfer it over. That's kind of what my attorney told me would happen. But basically I had to close my LLC from Colorado and open a new one here in Missouri. So I did. It gave me a chance to rebrand again, which, I thought I needed it. So I have a new LLC. It's I Love Empowered Movement. And so I just teach people, somatic movement, Pilates, Feldenkrais, and self-defense.
Oh, wow. Okay. All right. So here's the thing is that, a lot of people who are listening to this are 60, 70, 80, and a lot of them have led very sedentary lifestyles, and they are overweight, and they are out of shape, and they hurt, right? They'll have aches and pains, and all of this just seems too fantastic for them, right? Just too much effort, not worth the reward because maybe they don't think that they're going to get a reward, that maybe they think they can't overcome 40 years of a bad lifestyle, right? So what do you say to people like that who basically think that it's just out of reach for them?
Well, what we believe is what we become, and what we tell ourselves is what we eventually do believe. So if you're telling yourself that, try and change the conversation, the self-talk. Understand that you actually can heal from anything. Our bodies have an incredible capacity to heal itself as long as we give it the right environment to do so. It doesn't matter, okay, where you're at or where you're starting from. You just have to start. Start doing something. You don't have to go to the dojo and learn martial arts. I wouldn't recommend that. Start with something like Qigong, or I do think Tai Chi is very gentle. I recommend that to people who are trying to get moving for the first time. Do your homework. Really research the person that you're going to be taking the training from. See what their credentials are, their background. Again, talk to some of their clients or students if that's possible. But if you really believe that you cannot improve, you've already lost. But if you put that belief in your head that, you know what, one small step is all it takes. One tiny step leads to another, and then another, and then another. And just get that negative self-talk, just tell it to go away. I interviewed a delightful lady a couple of weeks ago who is like a courage coach, and she helps people, conquer their fears. And that's basically what she says is, she says, name your fear, give it a name. She calls hers Fred. And Fred kind of sits on her shoulder a lot of times saying, you can't do this. She's, what are you trying to do? And then she just has to tell Fred to be quiet and go away. And she takes one small step. And that's all you have to do. Get out of the recliner, get up, walk to the kitchen and back just a couple of times, a day. Then a few days later, make it a few more times. Then a few days later, go outside, walk around the block. You don't have to do it all in one session, or just tiny little pieces really adds up.
Right. Now, but what about people who have like chronic pain, like, for example, like arthritis, which is huge, right? A lot of people just feel that they can't really move very well because it hurts. What do people in that situation, what do they do in order to like overcome that?
Move more and hurt less. And I'm not saying get up and go jogging or whatever, but this very gentle movement of the joints, gentle contraction of the muscles. It is, I would really recommend getting a physical therapist or a somatic movement expert, somebody who really knows what they're doing. A lot of times what I didn't like about doing traditional physical therapy when, I first got my master's was that everybody was kind of treated the same. And it's like, here are the exercises, do this is the diagnosis. But you have to really listen to your body and the message that your body is giving you. If you just even do a slightly bend and flex of your knee, or even just a side-to-side rocking of your knee when you're sitting in a chair, you're mobilizing your hip joint. That's going to help your back. So don't let anybody tell you that you can't, because you can. I mean, I've seen amazing things. And I myself was a chronic pain patient when I was in my mid-30s. I was told that I would never be able to have the life I had before. I would never be able to, do the things I love to do. And I was also told that I better start applying for disability because I was going to need it. And I was 36 years old.
Wow, what happened when you were 36 years old that got you that diagnosis?
Yeah. Knowing what I know now, I know it was just poor body mechanics. I was working, as a respiratory therapist, and so I was leaning over patients. I was moving a lot of heavy equipment, doing all kind of stuff, and then going to ballet class. And I didn't understand my body or how it works the way I do now. And so that's another thing I would suggest for the listeners. Just get a book on anatomy. You don't have to be an anatomist or a physiologist or a physical therapist, but just look at pictures of how the body is put together And once you start understanding your body and how it works, it gets a lot easier, and it's almost like you're your own little private detective or private investigator. Why is this hurting me? And just, this is going to sound really crazy, but somebody told me this when I was going through my pain situation: dance with your pain. What I like to tell my clients is pain is a powerful teacher. It's a way of your body communicating that something needs attention. Don't just immediately go, oh my God, I'm falling apart. This is terrible. I have this horrible injury. Our bodies have an amazing capacity to heal.
Yeah, so, my dad just turned 83 years old yesterday. We went and had lunch with him, and my mom is 82. And about 6 or 9 months ago, my dad a little longer than that, maybe like a year or two, but my mom 6 or 9 months ago started using a walker. And she says it's because of arthritis. And it just kills me to see her like walking around with like a walker, because, I look at like Mick Jagger, who has like, ravaged his body with drugs and, like all this terrible shit. And he's out there and like he's dancing ballet, so like, so I think that maybe it might be possible for somebody like my mom or my dad to like, to like turn it around. I mean, is it possible even in your, early 80s to like turn it around and like throw that walker away and actually get up and like dance?
Well, I'm not sure if they can really get up and dance right away, but yes, you can take the first small step of doing that. I would suggest, again, try and get a physical therapist to work on her gait pattern. And when she says because arthritis, where is she feeling the pain, or where is the arthritis? Is it in her knees? Is it in her back? Is it in her hands? Because that's not going to feel good holding the walker.
Yeah, good question. Where is the arthritis? I don't actually know. So you think that, I assumed it was just in her hips and her legs, I would assume, right? Maybe lower back. I don't really know. I do know that like 3 years ago, they came down to like watch my kids play, and like they couldn't hardly walk from the half block from the car to the theater, right? So that was really shocking at the time. So a physical therapist. So you think that somebody who's in their early 80s and is maybe looking at like such decreased mobility like that, like start with a physical therapist, like any physical therapist, or are there certain modalities that physical therapists are trained in that they should look for to help them in a situation like that?
Well, actually, I'd start with a physician, if they have a family physician or a PCP or whatever, and just say, okay, this is where I'm hurting, this is what's going on, this is how it's impacting my life, and then they could be referred to a physical therapist that way. But, honestly, the main thing is mindset. And the other thing I would have to ask is, what's their diet like? And the reason why I'm asking this, because I spoke with a delightful 84, is he 84 or 85? I think he's an 84-year-old man, either 84 or 85. And he is in fantastic shape. And he did it by completely changing his diet. And, I know that's a really touchy subject, and he just went all plant-based. And he said all of a sudden, things stopped hurting, and he had a lot more energy. He wasn't getting sick as often, or, even not at all. He plays pickleball 5 days a week. And I'm like, I just have to ask you, how's that feel on your knees? Because I know that's a lot of lateral back and forth. He goes, well, my knees do hurt a little bit, but, I'm doing exercises to mobilize them and take care of them. And that's the thing, is you just have to mobilize your joints. You can't just let them it's like when you sit in a car for a long time, do a long drive, and then you try and get out, and it's like, oh my gosh, who poured cement in my joints? You have to keep moving and mobilizing the joints.
Right. Well, there's that movie I watched a long time ago now. I want to say like 30 years ago now, Fat, Sick, and Nearly Dead. Have you ever seen that movie before?
I have not.
Oh, I think it's on Netflix. So Fat, Sick, and Nearly Dead. And it's all about how like the food industry in America is poisoning us literally to death, right? And
yeah.
So, like my parents obviously had a terrible diet. They're Americans, right? So, my dad has diabetes, and, we were all raised on processed foods and, whatever, and so that's what they've been eating their whole entire life. And, I think they've gotten a lot better lately, sort of out of necessity. So I think that, they've they're largely plant-based. They're not entirely plant-based now, but probably, 80 to 90% of their calories are probably plant-based, I would guess at this point.
That's
So I
huge.
think that they are doing better in that regard. But for me, it's like, because you say, okay, go to your primary care physician. It's like, for me, it's just so disappointing that the primary care physician isn't taking
Yeah.
more of an advocate role in the relationship with their
Right.
client and saying, you know what,
Right.
screw the walker. What you need to do is blah, blah, blah. You need to see a
Yeah.
physical therapist. You need to, start moving. Like, don't just accept decay, right? Which is, I think, is what apparently, so like take an aspirin or whatever, take an Advil, right? I mean, like, which I think is like what so many doctors are doing, right? Is that I mean, it's like an epidemic in America of doctors just basically saying, take a pill and we'll manage your decline.
Yeah, right. And boy, where's the fun in that? But that's what we're used to doing. And the medical community they have a very limited knowledge of things that they can recommend, and they just go with what they know, what they've been taught. And it's like, what's the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. So the other thing that you could look into is there are so many wonderful, powerful alternative healing modalities out there, or trying like a naturopath, or what's the other one? Integrative medicine. I've talked to a lot of MDs who gave up very lucrative practices to go out into different areas because they felt that they were not serving their patients well, and that preventative would be the best way for them to go. So I would look at alternatives.
I would think so. And I think that a lot of times, like, things that are looked as outside the box, right, are things that are like quack medicine or whatever, right, but like, the more I look at it, the more I think that, Western medicine is the quack medicine, right? I mean, it basically is just like, take a pill, essentially, is the answer for just about everything. And they don't really look at like diet and like movement, which are like so fundamental and basic and, a process of millions of years of evolution, as to, like, let's get back to that as a way to like, improve, your overall health outcomes. So, that's probably pretty good advice, is to go and look for, like somebody who is not really a standard, Western medical practitioner, I would guess, if you're having that kind of problem. So, all right, well, that's good advice. And I'm going to share this podcast episode with my parents. And, they know I have this podcast, but I don't think they're regular listeners. But I'm going to get this one into their hands, maybe even on a pre-release basis, because I think that it is something that they need to hear. And I think that it's a lot of Americans need to hear the same thing. So we got to kind of wrap things up. But is there anything that we didn't talk about that you feel is like really important, a message to get out to people?
I think I've said a lot, but honestly, I cannot emphasize enough how important it is for us to be proactive in our own health, healing, wellness, mindset. Guard your mind like a jealous lover. I'm telling you that, because there are a lot of outside forces that are trying to tell us things that really are not true. That, you're not strong enough to do this. You need to just go and sit down because you're too old. I was told I was too old to take ballet when I was in my 30s. I'm like, I'm in my 30s. But of course I was so injured. But just if you do go to the experts and they tell you something and it doesn't really sound right to you, listen to your gut and get a second opinion or a third opinion. You be your own little health detective, because there are so many wonderful alternative healing modalities and so many things available to us that were not available 30 years ago, maybe looked down upon. There's things like acupuncture, cranial sacral therapy, Reiki. There's so many things that we have available to us. So do your research, and as I said, guard your mind like a jealous lover. Don't go there. No negative self-talk.
All right. Terrific. Well, that's very, very good advice. So, Cheryl, if someone wanted to reach out to you to talk about ways that they could improve their own movement and quality of life, what's the best way for them to reach you?
Best way is through my website, CherylIlov.com. And you can connect with me also on LinkedIn. I'm there. I'm on Instagram, but I'm not real active on that. But if you can't find me, you're not looking, because it's a really unusual name. And I'm pretty sure I'm the only one in the Western Hemisphere named Cheryl Ilov. Pretty sure. There's a Cheryl Love somewhere, but...
That makes it very helpful. And what was your website again?
CherylIlov.com.
Oh, I thought you have another one, too. Don't you have another website, too?
The Femininja?
Yes.
Yes, the FemininjaProject.com. That is my podcast, where you talk a lot about healing, empowerment, restoring human dignity, and alternative health and healing.
Well, that sounds awesome. All right, so people should definitely tune into that as well. All right, Cheryl. Hey, thank you so much, really, for being a guest on 60 Plus Uncensored. I really appreciate you taking the time to share your knowledge and wisdom with me and all of my listeners.
Thank you so much for having me. It's really been my pleasure to be here. Thank you, Seb.
All right, we'll catch you on the flip side. All right, that's a wrap for this episode of 60 Plus Uncensored. Huge thanks to Cheryl Ilov for setting the tone with such honesty and insight. Now, if you liked this episode, do me a favor, do Cheryl a favor. Hit that subscribe button, leave a review, and share it with someone you know who needs to hear it. Oh, and by the way, if you know someone over 60 like Cheryl who's still out there doing big things, living boldly, working with purpose, or aging on their own terms, I would love to hear from you. Reach out at team60plus.com or join the conversation on Facebook at 60 Plus Living. I'm Seb Fry, and this is 60 Plus Uncensored. Because as we're learning, life after 60 isn't the end, it's just getting good.
Subscribe now.